everyone, welcome. We're getting this
Board
call
of
to
County
order at
Commissioners
5 on
acts
the
as a
dot.
quasi-judicial body when it hears requests for rezoning and conditional use permits. Applicants must provide competent, substantial evidence establishing facts or expert witness opinion testimony showing that the request meets the zoning code and comprehensive plan criteria. Opponents must also testify as to facts or provide expert testimony whether they like or dislike a request is not competent evidence. The board must then decide whether the evidence demonstrates consistency and compatibility with the comprehensive plan and the existing rules in the zoning ordinance, property adjacent to the property to be rezoned, and the actual development of the surrounding area. The board cannot consider speculation, non-expert opinion testimony, or poll the audience by asking those in favor or opposed to stand up or raise their hands. If a commissioner has had communications regarding a rezoning or conditional use permit request before the board, the commissioner must disclose the subject of the communication and the identity of the person, group, or entity with whom the communication took place before the board takes action on the request. Likewise, if a commissioner has made a site visit, inspection, or investigation, the commissioner must disclose that fact before the board takes action on the request. Each applicant is allowed a total of 15 minutes to present their request, unless time is extended by majority vote of the board. The applicant may reserve any portion of the 15 minutes for rebuttal. Other speakers are allowed 5 minutes to speak. Speakers may not pass their time to someone else in order to give that person more time to speak.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and get rolling with a moment of silence. And then the pledge, if y'all will join me.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, would anyone like anything pulled from consent? All right, seeing no requests, can I have a motion for consent?
Move the consent agenda, sir.
All right. Motion from Commissioner Pritchett, second from Commissioner Tabaya. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes 4-0. Next up, public comment. And it doesn't look like we have any general public comment. We just have item-specific public comment. So moving right along. Oh, do we have one? Yeah, we do have someone that submitted one for the second public comment period. I don't know if they'd like to go now, just to... Is it more than one? Yeah, anyone that's submitted for item K, if you want to go now, I'm happy to address it now just so you don't have to wait for most of the meeting. Otherwise, if you want to take the second public comment period, it's totally up to you. We've got, let's see, and I apologize if I butcher any names. Krishna Tawadia? That's me, sir. Okay. Would you like to go now, or do you want to wait till later in the meeting? Okay, come on up if you'd like. Welcome. If you could just start with your name and the city.
Krishna Tawadia, Merritt Island.
Thank you, sir. You've got the floor.
All right, thank you. I'm here to support a human rights LGBTQ plus ordinance in support with my friends over there, and I'd like to give a speech in support of the following. Since the birth of our nation, we have been told time and again that this country is meant for equality, freedom, and liberty. Since our founding, we have been promised these ideals. When our citizens go off to war, they do so knowing that they are trying to ensure tranquility and liberty for all. Every drop of blood shed and every single life lost for our country has gone towards this purpose. We are supposed to be living in this country knowing that everyone has equal rights, and my generation is supposed to be able to go to sleep knowing that the dream the founding fathers had for us to all be equal is safe and sound. And yet, an injustice against one is an injustice against all. Right now, in a society where freedom and equality should be guaranteed, there are members of the LGBTQ plus community who can be oppressed due to their identity. Right now, there are no laws stopping employers in Brevard from firing someone simply due to their sexuality, nor are there laws stopping members of the LGBTQ plus community from being put in conversion therapy. These are human beings, people exactly like you and I, whose entire livelihood is threatened simply because of the unjust decisions of their fellow Americans. It is unacceptable that there is nothing stopping someone from firing someone simply because they are part of the LGBTQ+ community. They are all people, all the same. In this land of freedom, this land of liberty, someone can be discriminated against and have their rights infringed upon simply because of someone else's unjust decision. The fact that conversion therapy has not already been abolished is also a blemish on our liberty. Conversion therapy unjustly attacks a fundamental part of who these people are for no good reason. They are ruthlessly subjected to this conversion therapy simply because people refuse to understand them. And this understanding is what we need in society. We are all people, and we all have the right to do whatever anyone else can. There simply must be protections in our country against discriminations of all kinds, and so long as that discrimination is not extinguished by the law, the promise of equality is constantly at risk. This discrimination can be prevented with your support here today. We must remember that we cannot allow people to become aliens to our unalienable rights simply because we may not understand them or feel like their cause is one not worth taking up. We must remember that we the people means everyone, and that right now you can help us create the change that can mend the rift in our society, our values, and our country. Equality must stand, and with that I rest. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you coming out.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.
All right, next up, and for any of the folks that I call at this point, if you want to wait till the back end, by all means, you're certainly entitled to do that. We've got Olivia Fortson next. And if you could do the same, just start with your name and the city, please.
Olivia Fortson, Rockledge.
Thank you.
Let me just pull it up. Thank you for letting me speak today. I'm here today because I want one of you guys to sponsor a LGBTQ+ human rights ordinance. In other words, banning discrimination based on sexuality or gender identity in the workplace. Additionally, banning conversion therapy in Brevard. All Americans grow up learning that all people are created equal and therefore should be treated equal, and equal rights apply to all of us and affect all of us. Even though we might not understand a person, doesn't mean we shouldn't love them and treat them equal. I urge you all to take a step in the right direction and sponsor this bill. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, we have Ariana, is it Donnie? I think that's an N. Am I close? Hopefully. Did I get that right?
Due to my experiences volunteering with special needs students, I have a unique perspective on this issue. My experiences have taught me that people with disabilities are more than capable of living fruitful, productive, and happy lives, as long as small accommodations are made for their education and social development. It was not long ago that this was not the case. In recent past, people with mental disabilities were considered to be a burden to society, hidden away in their homes of their parents or stuck in insane asylums. Now this attitude is rightfully viewed as cruel and unjust. Also, the past horrifying medical treatments treatments were used to cure mental illness, lobotomy, electric shock, and insulin shock therapy. Now these treatments are viewed as cruel and inhumane. It is my hope that conversion therapy for the LGBTQ+ community will be viewed the same way. We have learned that we cannot change how people's brains function on a fundamental level. In the same way, people are born with various mental circumstances. People are born with different sexual preferences. No amount of torture disguised as therapy can change how someone's brain functions. The basic premise of conversion therapy is wrong. You cannot tell a person how to think or feel. No amount of therapy is going to make an autistic child not autistic. Likewise, no amount of therapy is going to change a person's sexual orientation or how they choose to identify. In today's society, many people with disabilities are working at the restaurants you eat at and the places you shop at, so why should members of the LGBTQ+ community receive any different treatment? Take Alan Turing, for example. He is highly influential in the design of the theoretical computer science, providing a foundation of concepts in for algorithm and communications in the Turing machine, which is considered to be a model of a general-purpose computer. Sounds like a successful and well-respected man, right? Wrong. Turning took his own life in 1954, 2 years after being outed as gay. Homosexuality was a crime at this time, and Turning was convicted of indecency. He died from eating an apple laced with cuddling. He was 41 years old, and this is still going on today in today's society. It is terrible to think that we could be losing some of the brightest minds over something as simple as who they love or how they identify.
Thank you so much. And just for purpose of the minutes, she was from Rockledge. All right, next up we have Jacob Gelman. Welcome.
My name is Jacob, and I'm from Melbourne, Florida. First off, I would like to thank the chair, Mr. Lober, and every commissioner for letting me and the public speak today. Liberation is a noun defined as the act of setting someone free from oppression. However, more than that, liberation is a verb. Liberation is an action taken by a group or entity with the effect of release. I am here today to not only ask for this release, but to beg for it. I am begging for you to liberate me in the workplace, because when the way I exist, the way I was born, the way I love, the way I speak, the way I walk, the way I was created, when the way I am is grounds for my extermination, I am not released, I am not free. When I have a 17% chance of being fired, a 28% chance of receiving a bad job evaluation, a 41% chance of verbal or physical harassment because of who I am far from released, I am far from free. Because when 90% of my transgender brothers and sisters have encountered some form of harassment or mistreatment on the job, they are not released, they are not free. Because we as queer people in this county exist as puppets, lacking free will and a sense of omnipresent agency. We exist as defenseless prey in a jungle of hatred. We exist naked without the protection of litigation, hung just barely out of reach by those who are afraid of acceptance. I am begging for you to liberate those in conversion therapy. Liberate those in the underground system of hatred, perpetually telling them their worth is non-existent. Liberate those whose trauma leads to tragic and deadly consequences. Liberate those whose existence as a human crumbles in the torture of a practice denounced by the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, American Academy of Pediatrics, and American Academy of Physician Assistants, to name a few. Liberate those whose involvement leads to a risk of being 8.4 times more likely to have attempted suicide and 3.4 times more likely to have used illegal drugs. Liberate the voiceless in Brevard and give them the power to speak for themselves. I am begging for you to liberate me as a renter, because federal law lends no protection, because the Fair Housing Act does not protect people against discrimination based on sexual orientation or gender identity, because I have a right to exist but not to live, because the fear of eviction looms as an imminent threat for those hiding in the shadows of a hateful landlord, because families of gay parents face the rejection to buy homes in straight neighborhoods. I am begging for you to liberate me as a person, not as a gay man, not as a student, but as your son, your daughter, your lawyer, your doctor, your assistant, your friend. I am begging for you to liberate me as someone who read somewhere that all men are created equal and that all people are endowed by their creator with inalienable protections. I am begging for you to liberate me as someone who heard somewhere that it takes no compromising to give people their rights and it takes no money to respect the individual. I am begging for one of you here today to sponsor a human rights ordinance liberating me and all other queer people in Brevard by granting us the right to exist freely as individuals. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, next, our last public comment, or general public comment, I should say, is Michelle Arab? Arab? Okay, Arab, thank you.
My name is Michelle Arab, and I'm from Melbourne. I stand here today in opposition to a system that preserves and justifies discrimination against the people. I stand here today to ask the Commission to sponsor a bill to end this discrimination. I stand here today because to become complacent in an oppressive system is to apply with that same system. I stand here today because we as citizens have the moral and ethical standard as Americans to demand better institutions and laws. I stand here today as an ally of the LGBT. To the board, as an American, as a God-fearing person, as someone with love, I ask you to sponsor a human rights ordinance in Brevard and support queer liberation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, that's it for public comment. Commissioner Isnardi?
Yeah, I had a couple of questions, probably more for the county attorney. I just wanted to see if we could do an analysis to see if we have anything in our code of ordinances or in our HR policies and procedures that where we could make improvements to make sure that we, at least as a county, are protecting everybody and not just, because if we have things in there that include, you know, non-discrimination against age, sex, can we just get an analysis on that to see if we can do better, or
You want
see
to
where-
report to the board? We can do that.
Please,
Okay.
thank you.
And I don't think we need a motion for that. I'm happy to second it if you want to make it as one, but if-
Okay, I'll
if
make a
Ms. Bentley-
motion to review our policies and procedures.
I'll go ahead and
to
second it.
include what I discussed. All right.
All right, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, passes unanimously, 4-0. So, Ms. Bentley, do you think that's something you could get to us maybe in the next month or so, or?
Sure.
right,
We can do
perfect.
that.
All right, just so that you all have some idea in terms of when to expect something back. All right. So moving along, we're going to go right on into public hearings. Item H1. If we could have staff just do brief intros for all of them, unless the commissioners decide to have a little bit more. If you can give us an intro, I'd appreciate it.
Good evening. First item is 19 PZ 00124. Zamir and Gazim Dosi requests a change of zoning classification from RU1-7 to RU2-12. It's located in District 5. Commissioner Isnardi. Staff has received 15 letters in opposition. Just to bring to the board's attention, the subject property is located in a predominantly single-family neighborhood.
All right, we have some public comment cards on this. First up, it looks like we have an attorney, George, is it Burris? Yes. All right, come on up. And if anyone is the applicant when they come up, please let me know, because you're entitled to a different amount of time. If I don't hear that you're the applicant, I'm just going to presume it's general public comment as to that item. And I'm guessing from the posters, you probably are the applicant or represent the applicant? Yes, sure. Okay. Thought it was a somewhat safe assumption. All right, welcome, sir.
Good evening. I represent Mr. and Mrs. Dosi in this matter. Commission, basically what we have going on here is my clients would like to convert their house into a duplex. Originally, the house was meant for 2 families. It was meant for my clients as a split family. In other words, the husband, the parents on one side and then their children on the other side. So after some consideration, they decided that they want to do something different at that, and that's why we're here today, to see if they can't alter that. Now I've read through all the documentation that's been provided, the letters that were provided to the commission and to staff. But looking at staff's analysis of the matter, one of the points I believe that was made by many of the parties was as to traffic. There's a 0.01% increase in traffic. We're talking about 1 or 2 cars, being added to the neighborhood. In addition, I disagree a little bit with the staff's analysis. There are a significant amount of multifamily style homes in the area. According to an analysis of Brevard County property appraisers' records, there are, within 1,500 feet of the home, there are 31 condo units, 3 duplexes, 4 triplexes, 2 quadruplexes, and 4 multifamily usage area homes, and also 9 townhomes, which weren't noted in the staff's analysis that was provided to the commission. So adding another duplex, especially there are 3 duplexes on this block already. Basically, if I'd like to show the commission here, this is a map of the area that was provided from the Brevard County Property Appraisers website and blown up appropriately. This is Atlantic Avenue, the street in question. There is a condominium unit at the end of the street, and then there are 2 multifamily uses at the big front of the street as well, 2 duplexes next to those, and then another duplex actually all the way on the end of the street. I believe that many of the comments that were provided by neighbors kind of reflect that they don't want their neighborhood to become overrun. This isn't the type of action, this type of basically altering, giving a variance in this situation would basically not create the types of issues that are being complained of. Now, there is, according to staff and according to their analysis, there were some land use issues as to the property. I believe there were setback issues. There's a 4.2-foot setback as to the main setback. There's a 25-foot setback that's required. There's also a 4.510 setback as to the west side of the property. The thing is, Your Honor, this is an already existing home. So by granting a variance, you're not actually changing anything. Same thing with the sewage. The sewage will not have any changes. See, there's a lot of complaints that were filed in these letters saying that things would change. Nothing actually does change. The home exists. The only modifications to the home that would potentially happen are interior, not exterior. So therefore, none of these things where there's increased traffic, that there's going to be a sewage issue in the neighborhood, that there's going to be, there's some sort of imposing on other people's property. None of that happens here. Basically, these are all existing things. So all we're doing is looking to basically have a variance as to an existing property that's already there, basically allowing them to cut it in half so so part of their family can live on the one side and then the other part can be rented out to parties as necessary, basically. And we'd be looking at long-term renters. They're not looking at short-term parties. They don't want to disrupt the neighborhood. And I think that's a very key concern here because many of the letters were basically addressing the fact that they want, that this is an issue, that they thought that the neighborhood would be, would be disrupted in some way, shape, or form. When you look at the other duplexes, when you look at them on the property appraiser's website as well, they're basically, it's identical situations. The lot sizes are the exact same. All the buildings are built on double-sized lots. There are no significant differences between the duplexes that already exist other than perhaps the size of the building. But they don't have sewage, because there's no public sewage in the area. There's only public water. So basically, many of the requirements that are being stated have already been waived for other buildings in the area sometime in the past. Now, there's also, when you look at I believe there's also a concern about rental properties that was brought before the commission and before staff by the parties. According to looking at the Brevard County Property Appraiser's website again, there are approximately 18 properties along that one street that are owned by entities. Not owned by persons, by entities, trusts, and not family trusts, because I eliminated those. So basically just trusts, corporations, other types of entities along those lines, which seems that those buildings would actually be, those residences would be rentals, not necessarily, home-owned, things where homeowners are residing there. So in conclusion, the impact here for my client is minimal, and we believe that you should grant the variance for the property and allow them to do basically the remainder of the construction that's required in order to divide the property appropriately. They do have to install some plumbing and electrical work, but there's no outside work that would be done that's in relation to that. And I would reserve my 8 minutes remaining to rebuttal.
I'll give you 8 minutes and 45 seconds. Will that work?
No, that's fine.
Perfect. I've got a question for
Sure,
you, unless
of course.
someone else does first. You mentioned that there are only going to be interior modifications and that the area doesn't have sewer anywhere, I guess, that's accessible.
Right.
Is there just one septic tank there now, or are there two, or what's the setup as far as that's concerned, if you know?
I don't know offhand. I know that it meets the code requirement. There's, I believe, 4 bathrooms in the residence.
Okay.
So they
In total?
meet that. So they meet that. In total.
Okay.
Right, excuse me.
Between both of the units in the duplex?
Well, there's not two. It's one
I
unit.
apologize.
So, yeah.
Between both portions of the duplex, I should say.
Correct.
Can I add something?
Well,
Yeah.
Well, let's do this.
Yeah.
Just when you have the remaining time for rebuttal,
Okay.
we can address anything else that you'd like to add, so you'll have your 8 minutes and 45 seconds.
Okay.
But beyond that, if you know, there's not going to be a change insofar as the septic is concerned, is there? Where it's either going to be added or, okay,
I
perfect.
mean, unless it's required. If it's required,
Understood.
then obviously they'll make the changes that are required.
But there's no intent to change it in any way that you're aware of?
No, because it's already been approved as is. There's no real reason to try to change it at this point. So.
Perfect. I appreciate it. I'll keep this time saved, then we'll go on to the other public comment on the item now. All right, next up, we have got I think that's Angie? Andy? Doci? Dochi? All right, come on up.
When the septic was...
Before you
desi-
start, if
Yeah.
you could just put your name and the city that you live in on the record.
In the Atlantic, Florida? Okay. When the septic...
Hang on one second,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
I'll make it quick. All I
Bear with
have
me
is a
just one
short
second,
comment.
too. I promise I'll give you a chance. Ms. Bentley, if this is also the applicant himself, how would you recommend that I treat this? Should I deduct this from the remaining time that the attorney had?
Yes, the applicant has 15 minutes total.
Okay, so I'll give you the remaining 8:45.
It's just going to take 30 seconds. When we designed, when the house was built, right, the capacity, bathroom capacity was
sir.
already calculated. So if anybody is going to live there, we're 6 people already, and if it gets divided and we rent it out, because we're going to stay the way we are, but if we rent it out, I would assume we don't want big families, so 8 people in total, so there is a change of 2. So all bathrooms are calculated with that septic system. It's an aerobic, it's a new septic type, and it doesn't, basically it has more capacity than the usual ones.
Okay, so it's an advanced septic.
But in case the building department wants an extension, we can remove part of the driveway and make it bigger. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, we're going to keep the 7 minutes and 59 seconds at this point for rebuttal. We've got a couple more public comment. Ron Vesser, also from Indy Atlantic. And if you bear with me, I'm going to reset this timer. If I can figure out how to do this. No.
Good evening to the board. Thank you for listening tonight. We appreciate it. The neighbors of Atlantic Ave. My name is Ron Vesser. I'm the abutter to the property in question to the west. I'm going to read something to you quickly. 163 Atlantic Ave opposed. 140 Atlantic Ave opposed, 160 Atlantic Ave opposed, 179 Atlantic Ave opposed, 169 Atlantic Ave opposed, 202 Atlantic Ave opposed, 155 Atlantic Ave opposed, 117 Atlantic Ave opposed, 100 Atlantic Ave opposed. We're opposed for objective reasons. First of all, we were told by the county already that multifamily density has to be plugged into sewer. That's not available to this home. We have a few duplexes, and it was a mischaracterization earlier. We have a few duplexes on the east end of our street that are old as dirt. They're probably 40 years old, and they're grandfathered, I'm sure, in that they do not require sewage connections for those dwellings. We have a setback issue to the west and to the east. I will never grant setback waivers for my property, and I can promise you the neighbor to the east of this property owner, Gene, I have to think of his last name for a moment, he will never grant any waiver exception to a setback on his property line either. We won't do it. The other thing is that, what else did I want to bring up? Oh, this whole matter has not been conducted in a transparent manner by the applicant. If you drove by the street, or you might have the front elevation of the property in front of you, I don't know if you can see it or not, this thing was spring-loaded for a duplex. It looks like a duplex, it smells like a duplex, and it wiggles like a duplex, and that's what they always wanted, and now they're trying to do an end run around the county and have this approved, along with the fact that they recently purchased another property on our street, a few houses down, that's an empty vacant lot. We see this end run coming again. So we have big questions about the septic system. We had environmental issues discussed last time. We have environmental issues in the county for septic systems. We put a multifamily use on that property. That septic system is probably not properly designed and would have to go through a review. But we were told last time by the county, I forgot exactly what P&Z commissioner mentioned it, that sewer is a must for multifamily. So in concluding, let me just see if I had anything else to say. That is pretty much my position and the position of the neighbors there. We don't want more duplexes. We have a single-family home street. There have been new homes that have been built recently. All the new homes that have been built on our street, we really haven't had new home building activity on our street for years, up until about 4 or 5 years ago. I believe, I'm guessing here, about 5 or 6 new homes have been built on our street. They are all single-family homes. We have had no new multi-built, and we feel that it'll have a negative impact on many, many things. So I'm in strong opposition of this happening, and I'm available for any questions or comments, and I appreciate your time in the matter for listening. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, last up, before we go back to the rebuttal time, Roger and Nancy, help me out with this. Sour Butts? From, let's see, Palm City?
I live in Palm City. We purchased the home across the street from 159. We're at 160. We currently have it as an annual rental. We purchased our home with long-term plan to retire to a small community with very personal feel, good neighbors, and a secure, safe, and stable environment. When the property opposite was being built, we raised questions as to the intended use when we noted 2 virtually identical sides to the house, and the home plan indicated a 2-family intent. The zoning was clearly for single-family home. However, it was explained that it was the same family, just parents and a son, who would be sharing, so the zoning was correct for the intent. Now the request for rezoning has come up, and it raises many issues for us as property owners. Firstly was the owner's long-term intent to build the home in a single-family zone and then try to get it rezoned, which is clearly what we're seeing now. The possibility of having short-term rentals in a single-family neighborhood is concerning. I called and asked questions about the RU 2-12 and was told it changes the ability for rentals, meaning you can have short-term rentals, you can do Airbnbs, things like that, whereas the zoning that we have now, an annual rental is acceptable but not short-term rentals. So that's a concern. Additional traffic on our narrow street is a concern. I know the attorney said that there are condos and all those things. There aren't. There's townhouses at the top of the street up on A1A. There's probably 8 units, but when you get closer to the west of the it's kind of a long street, but it's a dead end. There are nothing but single family and a couple old duplexes. There's no, I think he said condos within so many feet on our street. There's none. That's all at the top on A1A. So added traffic, there might not be added traffic with this particular duplex, but if they were to change the zoning and other homes become duplexes, they build another duplex, that would significantly add to the traffic on our small street. Yeah, so the concern of changing the zoning would mean that more traffic would be an issue. The duplexes on our street were grandfathered in as far as we know. They are very old and they're not new. So
that's pretty much it. It was just the intent from the start we see as being this, and we wouldn't have bought a house to retire to had there been duplexes around us. So that's kind of our position.
I appreciate y'all coming out, and thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that's it for public comment on this item. If the applicant wants to come up, or if the applicant's attorney would like to come up, I can give you the remainder of the time that you have. Welcome back.
Thank you. Just briefly, basically what we have here is there's a lot of feelings going on here. You have a lot of people who are very opinionated about what they have, but basically it's opinions. We have to look at the facts in this matter more so, and whether a variance can be granted based on those facts. When we have as I previously presented, those facts exist, and there are other consistent uses in that neighborhood. There's a lot of things saying here about traffic. How do 1 or 2 cars make such an additional traffic burden in the area? But these are all speculation by other people in the neighborhood. Also, when you come up and the first thing you do is try to list, okay, well, all these people are opposed to it, but yet and there's been letters sent to that, but yet we don't know, the extent of their opposition, and we don't know the factual reasoning behind their opposition as well here. They're not here, to do that, and the letters don't necessarily, present that fully to the commission. I believe that it's funny, as the recording stated before we started today, we're here to listen to facts, and we're here to make decisions based on those. And that's all we'd ask from the commission to do today. Thank you.
All right, you're better than I am. Normally when I say I'll be brief, I'm not, but I give you credit for that. Commissioner Tobias?
Oh, I'm sorry. Do you have any? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm just trying to wrap my head around this. I don't know if you misspoke or you're just unfamiliar with the difference between a variance and rezoning. Because you mentioned variance a couple times, but that's different than what's in the application. So can you clear, was that a...
It's a rezoning issue. I'm sorry, and that is my
those are
misspeaking for that.
Polar opposites, you understand?
Yes.
Okay, just to be clear.
All right, Commissioner Isnardi, as this is your district, what would you like to do?
I don't have questions for the attorney.
Okay.
Tad? Question as far as if it's not granted for the rezoning, they can exist how they are now, correct?
Yes,
It just means they won't be able to rent it out later.
they wouldn't be able to split it as a duplex and create
Correct.
2 units there.
Okay.
Correct.
Well, I mean, we've gotten, aside from the correspondence in our office, it was pretty much in the package. I mean, is strong opposition against this in this neighborhood. And given the concerns with the sewer, I mean, I know that that's not an option for your client. I definitely have a concern, and it's not going to change the way they're living now. So we're not putting somebody out on the street. And whether the intent was purposeful or not, it sure appears that way, that was the intention right from the beginning. So myself, I know this is my district, and I there's 4 of us up here. However, I don't feel comfortable granting it at this time. So I'm not going to be supporting this.
Commissioner Pritchett?
Okay, so I'll make a motion to deny this as it stands.
I second it.
All right, y'all have that? Perfect. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on it?
I'd like to make a comment.
Hang on a sec, sir. Seeing none? All right, let's go ahead. We'll take a vote. This is a vote on Commissioner Isnardi's motion to deny the application. So all in favor of denial, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, the denial passes 4-0. And sir, I would just encourage you to speak with your attorney about your options. Because at this point, we've kind of gone through the process.
Do you wish the county attorney's office to make findings of fact on the denial?
Yes, if you
Sure.
would, please.
Okay.
And if that's all right, let's make that a separate motion. Would you care to make that motion?
I'll make a motion for findings of fact on this item.
I'll go ahead and second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes 4-0. All right, thank you all so much for coming out. Item H is in Hotel 2. If we can get staff to intro, please. Jeff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item H2 and H3 will be read into the record together since they are companion applications. So item H2 is 19 PZ 00126. Timothy D. and Rebecca F. Reeves request a small-scale comprehensive plan amendment from residential 1 to 2.5 to Res 1. It's located in District 1, which is Commissioner Pritchett's district. Staff has received 4 letters in opposition, 5 letters in support. I just wanted to bring the board's attention that the subject property is located in a platted residential subdivision just west of Highway 1. There is a variation of lot sizes from 1 acre all the way up to almost 7 acres. So with that, I'll turn that over to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot to read H3 and 2. So H3 is 19 PZ 00127. Timothy D. and Rebecca F. Reeves request a change the zoning classification from AU to RR1. It's also located in District 1, which is Commissioner Pritchett. Also, the attached BDP would limit the subject property to 1 house, which would not normally be allowed in the current land use and zoning district.
All right, perfect. We have 1 card from the applicant, Rebecca Reeves. Ms. Reeves?
Good evening.
Evening. If you could just say your name and the city as well.
Rebecca Reeves, Mims, Florida.
Thank you.
Okay, so my husband and I purchased this parcel back in 2017 from Miss Peggy Connor. And just a little bit of history on the parcel is the 2-acre parcel was originally purchased back in 1985 by Miss Connor and her late husband. Basically, it was a deal made between them and a neighbor. The neighbor needed money, came to them, approached them and said, I'll sell you these 2 acres. If I ever sell my land, I'll give you an additional acre. And with that being said, it never happened. He sold his land. Miss Connor and her late husband approached the new owners and asked to buy, the remaining part of the parcel, and they had no interest in selling her the parcel. So that's how the 2-acre parcel came to be. Our parcel is located on the south side of Ridgey Road, and down from the very west end, the acreages start at like 1.85, and like that the gentleman stated, it goes all the way, and an acre or a parcel over from us is BU1, and it's a 1-acre parcel. And just 2 blocks to the north of us, it's zoned RR1. In regards to the objection letters, we have a neighbor behind us, behind our parcel, who's worried about flooding. His name is Mr. Mock. Obviously, if a home is built there, it's going to be built with drainage plans approved by the county. There should be no issues with water infiltration onto his property. He's on the street to the south of excuse me, I'm a little nervous, to the south of ours, and his house sits on the road. I mean, there's literally almost 3 acres between our parcel and where his home is located. Basically, all parcels on our streets are currently buildable. Because of the way our lot was subdivided in 1985, it's non-conforming, and this is really the only way we can legitimize it. If it doesn't get rezoned, it could sit vacant, unbuildable indefinitely. You've seen I provided affidavits from the immediate neighbors, all in support of what we're trying to do. And like I said, we're just trying to legitimize this lot.
Right, I'm going to go ahead and reserve the remaining time that you have for rebuttal, but I'll go ahead and accept questions. Commissioner Pritchett?
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to approve this. Let me tell you why.
Okay.
Is that you're doing it on 2 acres. Even though we're doing a Res 1, it's really 1 house for 2 acres, which I think's appropriate right in this area. Plus the property surrounding it, they're not going to be able to do more than that either. So I think it's still going to fit within what needs to be done in this area. And you're on the west side of US 1. So I think that you'll have a beautiful home here. It's wonderful property. And you know what? I think you're going to be a very good neighbor.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
And Commissioner Pritchett, before we
Yes,
go
sir.
for a second on that, let's do that. I take that to be toward the comp plan item first, your motion?
Yes.
And then we can address the zoning?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
And
so I apologize.
that's okay. And am I doing the inclusion of the BDP on the comp plan one? Ted and Jeffrey, are we doing that on number H3?
I believe that you would be doing that on the zoning application, but we may want to see if there's public comment or
I don't
other
think he had
public
cards, did he?
speakers on this matter before we get too far along.
You said there wasn't
No,
any
there
other
was none
cards.
apart from the applicant at this point.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to approve H2 with the small-scale comprehensive plan amendment.
Okay, I'll go ahead and second that. And again, this is the comp plan item. All in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, passes 4-0. All right, now H3, Commissioner Pritchett.
Yes, sir, I'd like to make a motion to go ahead and make the change of the zoning classification
With the BDP?
with the BDP in place.
Perfect. Okay, and I'll go ahead and second that as well. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 4-0. Thank you so much for coming out.
You guys are wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
for your
It wasn't
time.
too bad.
Woo, I know. As soon as you called my name, though, I was like, ah.
Thanks again. All right, let's see. Whoop. So we're going to move on to H4. Staff, if you can give us an intro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next item is 19 PZ 00132. Charles and Lindsay Mitchell request a change of zoning classification from GU to AU. The property is located in District 1, which is also Commissioner Pritchett.
All right, let's take a look. I do see we have some cards on this one. First up, we have Charles Mitchell? Michelle, come on up. And sir, I believe you are the applicant, am I correct?
Yes.
All right, then you get 15. And you're from Cocoa?
Yes, sir.
Perfect.
Yep.
You got the floor, sir.
Okay, Charles Michelle, Cocoa, Florida. No, we just wanted to rezone it. My kids like animals, so, you know, that's pretty much it, really. I don't really have a whole lot to it.
Easy peasy. So let me ask you, I do have a question for the applicant here. You know, I want to approve this, assuming the commissioner wants to approve it in whose district this appears, but would you be willing to name the cow and the horse after one of the commissioners up here? As long as I'm not the back end of the horse.
I prefer not to be a cow, thank you.
Enough of that. All right, Commissioner Pritchett? Baby cow too, right? I guess we call that, what is that, a calf now?
Yes.
Baby cow?
Yes.
Okay. we were talking about something earlier.
Okay.
Commissioner Pritchett?
Did you have any other cards, sir?
Nope, that's it.
Okay.
Last card.
I'm going to make a motion to go ahead and approve this item.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second from Commissioner Isnardi. All in favor of approval, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 4-0. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you all very much.
Enjoy the critters.
Yes, thank you.
All right, moving along. H5, it looks like this item was withdrawn by the applicant, so unless someone has an objection, we're just not going to take any action toward it. Do you all still need to read it into the record?
I'll just do it just to make sure that we're in compliance. So item H5 is Robert and Donna Mercio requests a change of zoning classification from GU to AU. It's located in District 1. Commissioner Pritchett. Staff has received a letter to withdraw the application, and it was received on January 13th, 2020.
All right, perfect. We're going to go ahead and take no action. Seeing no objection to that, we'll move on to H6. Staff, if you would, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next item is 19 PZ 00134. John Vogt requests a change of zoning classification from RU 1-7 and TR-1 to AUL. The subject property is located in District 1. Commissioner Pritchett. Staff has received 3 letters in support, 2 petitions in support with 8 signatures, and 1 letter of opposition. Also to bring to your attention, the applicant has submitted 1 email that was put up on the dais for your review. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. We've got 3 items, 3 public comment cards on this. First up is Joe, and it looks like go for it. John? Yeah, we've got 2 before you, sir.
Oh, okay.
I'm just taking them in the order they were submitted. You know, logically, I'd probably call you first, but I'm just taking them in the order they gave them to me. So do we have a Joe? You think that's go for it? Or am I butchering that? All right. From Mims.
Thing stops.
No, it's all right, sir.
I don't know if you can hear me.
If you can bend that down, just so it's easier for them if they need to pull it in the future.
All right. Joe Goforth, I live at 5995 Palm Street. I believe I have the most common property line between the 2 pieces of property or the properties involved. And I just want to say that my wife and I both support the changes as requested.
All right, I appreciate you coming out. Thank you, sir. All right, next we have Jared Adkins from Scottsmore.
What happens? Probably break my other leg.
Hey, good to see you again, sir.
Yes, sir. I see you got rid of that projector that I
It
always
is-
had so much trouble with.
It is a little bit cleaned up here.
I'm gonna just. Okay.
Thank you. And one for Frank.
Okay, Jared Atkins, Scottsmore. I spoke with Mr. Vogt a couple weeks ago regarding his plans for this property. That's kind of when I learned about what he was trying to do. As the president of the Scottsmore Community Association, I brought Mr. Vogt's application and plans to the attention of the community by way of our monthly membership meeting and through emails. The overwhelming response from the community was positive. As you can see from the map that I handed you, there are several parcels in the immediate vicinity which are zoned ag, some of which are used only for housing, some of which are used for small farms such as groves and equestrian purposes. So clearly that shows compatibility isn't an issue. In fact, Scottsmore encourages folks like the Votes moving here to our town and assimilating to our rural lifestyle. You may recall this from last year's events. So on behalf of the Scottsmore Community Association and the members of our organization and residents of Scottsmore, we ask you to approve the application of our new neighbors and friends. And also, I'm just going to add, I have a new calf without a name. It's a female, so I'll be taking applications. Okay?
Thank you, sir. All
Yes,
right.
sir. Thanks.
Brian works. Brian.
Brian? I don't know. It's a girl. It's going to be tough to call. I don't. So, staff, let me just ask you to hopefully maybe move this along. Have we had any indication there's any opposition to this item?
We have not, since the planning and zoning meeting. I believe there was a couple residents that spoke in opposition to this application.
All right, Mr.
nothing
Vogt,
since
if you
then.
want to come up, it sounds like this may be a pretty straightforward issue, but I'll certainly happily give you your time.
John Vogt, Cocoa, Florida. Mainly, I took a little over 2 years to acquire all the different lots from all over the, mainly up in New York, the people who owned them. With the plan of rezoning, I never realized that we would go through all of this to do it. I thought you just buy property and say, hey, I want to, have a cow and put a barn on it and stuff like that. And now I find all this out after all the money I spent. So I'm just hoping that you go in favor for what we want to do up there.
Well, we'll find out in just a second if you're going to be able to have a cow. Commissioner Pritchett?
Will you name your cow after Brian?
I sure will.
Okay.
with the Y, just remember that.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. You're decreasing density, which is wonderful out here too, and you're moving into a wonderful neighborhood with people. I love these people. You're going to love it there, and I'm going to make a motion to approve this.
And I'll go ahead and second it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously.
Thank you very much.
You can have your cow.
All right.
Thank you. All right, H7. Jeffrey?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 19 PZ 00136, Thomas P. and Shannon Harmony requests a change of zoning classification from TR3 and AU to all AU and a removal of a BSP, which is a binding site plan. The subject property is located in District 2. Commissioner Lober.
All right, I'm going to make this easy. We do have one card. It's the applicant. You all are welcome to come up. Mr. and Mrs. Harmony. What I will tell you, though, is I'm going to make a motion. Well, actually, I'm going to request a motion to approve this. So you're welcome to say anything, but I might save you the time if you don't want, knowing that this is going to get approved. All right, come on up.
I'll make a motion to approve.
All right, we've got a motion with a second from Commissioner Tabaya. All in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes 4-0. Thank you. Take care. Oh, I apologize. We have Tom and Shannon Harmony. Oh, the motion to, oh, is it Christine? I apologize. All right, thank you all. See, and I thought I was speeding along. H8. Jeffrey?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item 19 PZ 00137, Holly Enterprises of Brevard, Inc. request a change of zoning classification from GU and BU1 to BU1-A in a CUP for alcoholic beverages, full liquor for on-premises consumption in conjunction with a snack bar and restaurant. The subject property is located in District 5, which is Commissioner Isnardi.
All right, we've only got one card on this, and it's the applicant, Kurt McKinney. So I don't know if you want to come up or if you'd like to.
I mean, if, yeah, well, I
You
was
want-
going to
wanna
make a
help, Matt?
motion to approve because basically you're just adding to your existing beer and wine, so I don't think there's any issue, and I don't have any oppositions, and nobody's called my office complaining about it.
Sounds like
so.
a motion.
I love you.
Second.
All right, we got a second?
Her.
Thank
It's
you.
okay. Someone must love
Maybe
me.
you'll have to name a drink after me. That sounds much more exciting than a calf.
Crazy Christine.
There you go.
Thank you, guys.
All right, so all in favor?
Great.
Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 4-0. All right, thank you, sir.
Crazy Christine, I like it.
All right, moving right along. Let's see, we've got H9. Jeff or Tad?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 19 PZ 00138, Reagan and McKinley LLC requests a CUP for alcoholic beverages, beer and wine only for on-premises consumption in conjunction with a restaurant in a PUD zoning classification. The subject property is located in District 4, which is Commissioner Smith.
All right, we do have one card. It's the applicant, but it sounds like we may have a motion. So if you want to come up and jeopardize the trend that we've got going on, you're more than welcome to.
Make
but
a motion.
Otherwise,
I make a motion to approve.
all right, y'all get that? All right, so we got a motion and a second. All in favor of approval, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously.
Thank you. And I'll ask the client if he can name a burger after one of the commissioners, because it's a new burger restaurant.
How about a turkey burger after one of us?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, H10. Looks like this is an item after staff introduces. I'll be asking for motion to table. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 19 PZ 00139, Beatrice A. Aikman requests a CUP for a guest house in a RU 1-11 zoning classification. It's located in District 2, which is Commissioner Lober. The applicant was not present at the planning and zoning meeting. Therefore, this has to be tabled to the next
May I have
meeting.
a motion? All right, and I'll second it. So all in favor of tabling, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Tabled 4-0
And I'm just clarifying that's to March 5th, correct?
to March 5th.
Correct.
Perfect. H is in Hotel 11.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 19 PZ 00140, Estrella Funias Shoup requests a change of zoning classification from GU RRMH-1 and AU to all AU with a binding development plan limited to 7 lots. The subject property is located in District 5, which is Commissioner Isnardi.
All right, we do have one card on this. Rick Bertall. Are you the applicant, sir? All right, let's just real quickly, if we can kind of test the waters first. Commissioner Isnardi?
I make a motion to approve.
I'll second that motion to approve. All in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes 4-0. Thank you. Moving right along, H12.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 19 PZ 00141, Barefoot Bay Recreation District requests a CUP for alcoholic beverages, beer and wine only for on-premises consumption in conjunction with a restaurant in a BU 1-A zoning classification. The subject property is located in District 3, which is Commissioner Tobias. Staff has received 3 letters in opposition. Thank you.
We only have one card. This is from the applicant, Commissioner Tobias.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Motion to accept.
I'll go ahead and second that as well. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes 4-0. Thank you all so much. Next up, going back up to D1, H13.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 19 PZ 00143, Port St. John Station LLC requests a CUP for alcoholic beverages, full liquor for on-premises consumption in conjunction with a bar in a BU1 zoning classification. The subject property is located in District 1, which is Commissioner Pritchett.
All right, we've only got the applicant as a public comment card, Commissioner Pritchett.
I make a motion to approve.
And I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 4-0. This is a good night for things getting through. All right, H14, back to the other end of the county. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 19 PZ 00108, Bonnie Douglas trustee requests a change of zoning classification from RU-1-9 and BU1 to TR-3 with a BDP limited to 173 mobile home sites. The subject property is located in District 3, which is Commissioner Tobias.
And again, this one only has an applicant public comment card. So Commissioner Tobias?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Motion to accept.
I'll go ahead and second it. All in favor of acceptance, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, approved 4-0. Thank you all. Now we get into some of the fun stuff. So I apologize for kind of stacking. All of the J as in Juliet items are mine. I had a few that I wanted to get done a little bit faster here, and I also didn't want to burden the next meeting, which appears to have quite a bit on it. So I'm going to try to get through these as quickly as I reasonably can. We do have, I see a couple of folks from Cape Canaveral, Mayor Bob Hogue, and then the esteemed Rocky Randalls. So let's go ahead and address this. J1, it's a motion directing staff to investigate the feasibility of transferring ownership of our county park, Cherry Down, to the city of Cape Canaveral. The short answer is this basically is going to put us in a position where we'll have staff do a little bit of legwork to enable us to do some more due diligence with respect to the possibility of transferring this park. I've spoken with several folks from Cape Canaveral, including some on staff, some elected officials, about this. This is something that they want. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to address those. See, we have 2 fine individuals from Cape Canaveral. If I can't answer it, I can certainly punt to them. 4 fine individuals. Oh, and I see the Mayor Pro Tem as well. And who's behind you, Bob? Okay, perfect. So we've got everyone we could possibly need. I apologize. In that bright pink shirt, I don't know how I missed you. Oh, okay, 5. All right, we have 5 fine individuals, tongue twister, from Cape Canaveral. So if anyone wants to discuss it, I'm happy to have discussion. Otherwise, I'd ask for a motion. Commissioner Tobias?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My decision, of course, will rest with whatever the agreement is, and obviously that has a lot of work to do. But I do want to point out that, and very rarely can I ever do this, Palm Bay has been a leader in taking responsibility for parks. There, however, are 30 parks, county parks, that are located within municipalities, and 12 parks that are city-owned but county-maintained. So hopefully, as we move forward, this can be the start in progression of, as we look forward to, prioritizing public safety. This may be one way as the city starts taking responsibility for the parks that are fully located within their jurisdiction.
All right, so with that.
I make a motion to approve.
All right.
Second?
Perfect. Second from Commissioner Isnardi. All in favor of approval, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes 4-0. I apologize, Mike. I don't know how I missed you over there at first. All right, moving along. Now we get to the interesting stuff. So J2 deals with tourist development tax proceeds. Is that an old one?
That's a new one.
That's a new one. Okay. All right, you'll be first up.
Can I just preface it
Yeah,
with
please.
the idea that given that this is such a huge item, we should probably have all 5 of us here? I mean, that's maybe your option or not to, but I think it's important, since it would require a supermajority vote, that you have the input of all 5 commissioners. At least that's my 2 cents, given the gravity of what you've proposed.
Okay, yeah, I'm happy to do that. I'm just thinking there is one correction I do want to make to the agenda that was brought to my attention today by staff. But I do want to ask Ms. Bentley, for this item, do we need a supermajority? Because this is not actually amending any existing code or...
Ultimately, when you do an ordinance amendment, it will require a supermajority. Telling us to go work on it doesn't require a supermajority, but your ultimate decision will.
Commissioner Isnardi, if you want, I'm still happy to table it. Alternatively, if we want to get to that next step and then we'll revisit it, I'm happy to handle it however you'd like.
Well, obviously, this is your item. You can handle it however you'd like, but I would just, because it is such an important item and it is like a sort of a hot button item, I think maybe we need to have input from all of us before so we know. I don't know that you want staff to do the work if you don't have the support. I'm not saying you will or you won't, but.
I see what you're saying.
I mean, I could give you my position, but it's not going to do any good, nor should we make staff go through the trouble unless we've got 4 votes up here.
Well, part of it as well, and I promise I won't get too far into this if I can avoid it. The supermajority, my understanding, that would be needed certainly for the road work, but Ms. Bentley, in terms of using it for other purposes, is that needed for any other purpose of use?
Well, if you end up amending the TDC ordinance, you have to have a supermajority. So I think your direction is going towards an ordinance amendment. I'm not sure.
And
Is
I'll
that
just tell
answering your
you, I
question?
like this a lot.
Okay.
I like what you've brought to the board, but I would like input from everybody.
Okay, if I could, here's what I'll do. I just have a few things I wanted to get out there, mostly for the public about this, and then we'll move on. I won't ask for a vote or motion on it. I did speak with Scott Ellis, and in fact, I had a video queued up that I was going to show that was about 3 minutes from a a presentation or town hall style event this past weekend with Mr. Ellis on this item. And essentially, he asked that I relay to the board his belief that TDT funds can't be used for road work. But for Randy Fine having passed legislation within the past couple, 2 or 3 years, changing state statute, he certainly would have been correct. But the way the statute now reads, I don't know that you have to be a seasoned attorney to figure out that roads are certainly something that appear to be permissible. So, as I mentioned, we've got the video. I'll wait until we have everyone here. The video does start after discussion of that particular topic began, but it does have at least Scott's position summed up pretty well there from Scott himself to get the gist across of what his concerns were. I do want to stress that what's proposed with respect to this isn't going to take away a penny from any current TDT allocation. So everything that's currently projected, all of the $16.6 million annual TDT would be left alone. This would impact only the increase, that delta over and above the $16.6 million. So I'm going to save the arguments beyond that. I just wanted to make that clear because I think there's been some ambiguity as far as us parasitizing what's already there and essentially putting the TDC in a position where it can't achieve what it's been doing over the past. With that said, though, I'm going to save the rest of the items until we have a full commission. Commissioner Pritchett?
Yeah, you're just asking that we consider the use of the additional funds. So I think that would be something the TDC would still vet, correct?
Yes, and as far as the road work is concerned, TDC, and Ms. Bentley, correct me if you have a different understanding, TDC would have to thumbs up the particular project as well. So we would have it come back through TDC first and then through us after that. So we would still have to give it a thumbs up.
So if they still had a lot of projects that they felt better about applying the funds to increase tourism, that would still be their option to do it. We're just trying to give them more options of what to do with the funds. So that probably wouldn't cause me any problem with that. Just to throw out a thought to you guys, sure. I love user fees. And when we get TDC funds, I hope they're finding ways to use these to bring in more tourism dollars because it certainly saves us a lot of tax dollars. But as far as roads, we might need to consider some thoughts of how to initiate some other user fees. The Blue Ribbon stuff came back a while ago on some ways to help the roads. So maybe it's something, if we start doing some homework on that, we would start doing that more as a user fee to work on the roads. And we could maybe alleviate some of the taxes off the ad valorem then, because that seems to be our biggest dog in the fight right now. Even what we did with the sheriff, I love the way we did that, because all those fees are going to the sheriff's department. If I could do the budget so everything that is compartmentalized can only be used in these areas, I would love being able to do that. So I just want to throw that to you guys since you brought this up, that maybe we could start rethinking that way and come up with maybe an idea of how to apply specific money to the roads. And I'm not saying like the lagoon tax, but if we did that with the roads, we'd only have to do that for 2 years and every road in the county would be fixed with a 50-cent sales tax with $64 million. So just a thought as we think through this, because if we applied it with user fees, then we could lower ad valorem taxes too, because we could take roads off of the other types of taxes. So I just want to throw that out to you guys since you brought this one up.
And the one correction, I did say I was going to make a correction as to part of the text of the actual agenda item itself. On the back page, the third to the last paragraph, where it talks about the actual raw mileage numbers, I had 220 miles listed as being part of the backlog. It's actually 306 miles as of today. So the 220 was based on the most recent figures I had up till today. So it's actually a little worse than what I had thought. 306 as of today. It's 306 in the backlog, so that includes resurfacing and reconstruction. But with that, I'm not going to take any action or request that we do anything at this point with it.
But just, you're going to bring it back for sure?
Oh, yeah,
correct?
I'm definitely going to bring it up again.
Okay.
I'll correct the mileage and then add this, in all likelihood, verbatim identical.
And maybe provide some different options, too?
The problem is I don't know that I'm in a position where I know as well as staff does in terms of which particular roads are best to allocate this toward. And what I would say as well to that end is I would prefer that staff handle it in large part to depoliticize it as much as possible. I really, when I spoke with staff, with Frank and John in particular, I said, I don't care if every single project is outside of District 2 but I do care if every project is inside of District 2 because it's going to send the wrong impression to the commission. If it's D2 and D1, that's fine. If it's D3 and 5, that's fine. If it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's fine. But I don't want to be the one selecting the individual projects, at least at the outset, that are identified. Commissioner Pritchett?
But this would all be at the recommendation of the TDC, correct?
Yeah, TDC would have to give it their recommendation, and then we would have to approve it after the fact as well. But
So they're going to be identifying roads for tourist development, so that would be comfortable.
yeah, and my idea at first is to have staff at least get them a list from which to look, and then take the recommendation as it comes up and consider whatever it is that's presented to us at that point. So, you know, and again, I'm happy to table it. So let's go ahead. We'll leave it be. We're not going to take any action on it. Is that an old one or a new one?
It's a new one.
New one, all right.
Yeah, well, my question really wasn't about specifics about projects, because I'm sure we could come up with a really good plan. My question to you, if you're going to bring this item back, would be options for your plan. Like, you talked about using the overage over the 16.6, and you talked about that as an option. Maybe if you've thought of any other things, or, I mean, we can always bring our own ideas too as well, but.
Sure.
I mean, just as, you know, maybe there's a happy medium in there somewhere, because I always was sort of on the fence on the whole lagoon portion being used out of the TDT funds, because we're collecting so many tens of millions of dollars as a separate tax, and I don't want us to get in the habit of I don't want the county to ever be in a position of not funding roads out of their general fund and out of the gas tax, because we are now pulling from the TDT. But I do agree that we should use some of those tourism dollars towards infrastructure, but it has to be a set amount, at least from my point of view, because I think, you know, if we delve in too much, then the next thing you know, we're funding all of our roads to the TDT, and that's not the intention of the tax.
Understood.
So,
And
while
we
I believe they bear a responsibility, you know, because we fund our roads out of several pots of money, I don't believe they bear all the responsibility.
I don't disagree with you.
sense?
Yeah, we do have one public comment card from Mary Jane Nail from Cocoa Beach. Yeah, if you just come up. Yeah, I apologize. If you can come up.
Well, we're not voting on anything,
Yeah,
so
I
you
just-
don't have to, if you
Yeah,
don't want to.
since you've waited this long, though, I definitely wanted to give you the opportunity. Oh, did you have one as well? Oh, you know what? It got mixed up. I apologize. All right, and then we'll have Janice Scott right after.
thanks.
Let's start with you, okay?
Okay, I'll go first, since I've been around a long time, maybe not as long as Mary Jane, but my name is Janice Scott, and I'll introduce myself as a former mayor of Cocoa Beach back in the day. Time moves on. And the reason I say that is because at that time, and starting probably around 1990, the city commissions in Cocoa Beach were pushing to get a tourist study to show what the impact of tourism was on the city. Now, that was finally accomplished around 2001. So in any event, it proved that tourism was costing the city residents a lot of money. And at that time, I believe we had about 27 police officers. Today, we have 39. So you can see that we need more services because of tourism. Also, we have 27 firefighters in Cocoa Beach now, and they're about to redevelop a really big hotel. So just to say that, you know, the population, the permanent population has not increased at all. In fact, it may be down about 300 from that time. So I understand that 60% of the TDC funds come from Cocoa Beach. So I'm just think that you all should consider sending the money back to the place of biggest impact, which you could clearly see. If you're getting 60% of the money from there, then it's being impacted more. Further, if you look on the vacation rental on the internet, there's 650 plus units that are being rented. Not all of them probably licensed or whatever, but when you take that figure and compare it to the rebuilding of hotels and so forth, you will see that the pressure is really on Cocoa Beach in terms of needing more safety services and so forth for the visitors. So please put that on the high priority. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ms. Scott. All right. Last but not least on this item, Mary Jane Nail, also from the wonderful city of Cocoa Beach.
Mary Jane Nail, 105 St. Croix Avenue, Cocoa Beach, Florida, 54-year resident of Cocoa Beach, former elected official as well as Ms. Scott, former congressional staffer, radio talk show, blah, blah, host. Anyway, the reason I'm here today is because the tourist development tax is very important to Cocoa Beach, as the former mayor pointed out. Reason being that we have the highest impact because it seems like all of the events are held in Cocoa Beach. Let's think about that. When you ask yourself the question, tourism in Florida, what's the biggest draw? I looked it up on the internet. It's called beaches, beaches, beaches. Not aquariums, not speedways, not entertainment facilities, beaches. So we're always going to have this onslaught of beach-related tourism in Cocoa Beach. And they wear out our roads. They are a taxation on our sewer system, our water system, our police, our fire, our emergency, our upkeep of our pool, public golf course. Hey, we even have a public golf course. It's wonderful. So what happens if all of this is cut off? Anybody remember Irma? Florida tourism bounces back 1 year after Hurricane Irma's destruction. There's Hurricane Irma. Now, what do we got going on now? It's called coronavirus. What do you think happens to tourism when you do that? Well, I'm going to tell you what happens. It bottoms out. Now, the reason that it bottoms out, but of course they keep coming to the beaches. The reason that it bottoms out is because people are not going to risk anything after these disasters or with these pandemics. And if you build things like aquariums, I'm not supposed to worry about the aquarium being built because it's going to be TDC money. Yeah, right. And so when everything else fails, guess where they come to for the money if tourism has bottomed out and bed tax has bottomed out? Me, Janice, everybody that lives in Cocoa Beach. But you know what? If it really gets bad, they're coming after you too. It doesn't matter where you are in the county. My point is, please be very careful in thinking about what you're going to do with this tourist tax money. We need it in Cocoa Beach. We are the goose. We lay the golden eggs, and we'd like a lot of that back. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Commissioner Pritchett?
I'll just throw out a thought on that, and I agree with that. Cocoa Beach is so important. A lot of people go there, but there's also Melbourne Beach, and the USSSA is packing out the tourists anymore. And, launches are starting to hit. So I think we have an incredibly awesome county as far as attracting tourists and the tourism dollars. So I thank you for bringing this up, Commissioner Lober. And I hope we have wonderful families coming into the area, and we have a whole lot of money to discuss of how to put it into our community.
All right, Commissioner Nardi.
And I appreciate the amount of work that our new director has put in place and better projects than have passed. And that's probably why a lot of people question how the TDC does spend their money, but I think they're on the right track now finally. We have a new board, we have a good diverse board, but tourists drive on roads. And you can bring them to the beach, you can bring them to the aquarium, whether you like aquariums or not. Tourists drive on roads, and the more tourists you bring, the more wear and tear on the roads. That cost should not go back to the locals. The tourism, the TDT tax can help support some of that. So I don't have a problem with it. I just want to make sure that, again, we're not shifting the burden to the TDT, because we do need to promote. That's what the tourism tax is for, is to promote tourism. So I want to be careful that we don't see it as a fresh pot of money to take advantage of. So again, I think that should be one of the sources we use.
Right, and just to kind of wrap it up, because I don't see any more requests at this point, I think this is a great opportunity, and we'll present when we have the full commission a great opportunity to actually do the right thing for our constituents and for the county. I know that there are folks that think that some of the folks up here are, I guess, pulled in different directions by different forces. And I think this is something where we can really show that special interests can do what they will, but it's not going to influence the final outcome of how the commission acts. So I think this is something that really is opening up a good opportunity and will at least allow us to evaluate and do that due diligence that I think we're obligated to do, that our constituents elected us to do, in terms of evaluating how really to prioritize the funds that are available to us in a way not only that benefits the tourism industry, but while still doing that, making life better and making life easier for the folks that live here that put up with the tourists. So with that, I said I wouldn't make a motion or ask for one. I'm not going to. We're going to go right on into the last item, which is J as in Juliet 3. This is the motion directing staff to enter into discussions with the firefighting union. I do see, actually, before I do that, I see a couple TDC members, Laurent Rawlings and Deborah Green. So I want to thank you all for coming out. J3 again. So essentially what I'm trying to do with this is to ask staff to make a genuine good faith effort in broaching certain topics with the firefighting union. This isn't going to require that we somehow jeopardize the position of the county. This isn't going to require in any way that we do something that's irreversible. This is simply putting us in a position where the firefighters understand that we value them and we value and take into account their concerns, and it's not simply our way or the highway. I did ask some of the firefighters that I met with if putting an agenda item on, essentially providing staff the direction to talk about these particular topics would be beneficial to them, and they had indicated they thought it would be. We do have a public comment card, and let's go ahead and take that now. Michael Bramson. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Commissioners. Michael Bramson, the President of the Brevard County Firefighters Union. I'm here just to thank you for your continued support and the direction moving forward with the Firefighters Union, working with an aligned plan with management and the commissioners themselves. So we appreciate what we could do in the future, addressing the items specifically towards the Firefighters Union's concern of retention and recruitment efforts and how we're going to better those positions in the next couple of months and years, specifically the year 2021, next year. That's all I have. Thank you for your support.
That's easy. Thank you. All right, well, that's all we have for public comment. Mr. Bate?
Thank you. I just wanted to focus the commission on an email that I sent on Monday, February 3rd, where we outlined efforts that have been ongoing, I believe, with the firefighter union leadership and our own fire rescue leadership team that have been addressing these specific issues. There is an attachment that was included with that email that outlined the efforts that are ongoing, that we are doing exactly what is being spoken about here, that we have staff together with the leadership team from fire rescue developing and already commenced work groups that are trying to look into these issues and address them. So I believe it's an ongoing process, and I included there that we are working on that issue. We have taken other action previously because the issue of overtime and some of those issues were issues that have been long-standing. The fire rescue has been, we've increased the floater pool to a point that they thought would be beneficial. They've also been given blanket approval to hire additional hiring classes, 3 a year, so that we could fill vacancies quicker. And they are working on that. There may be several other opportunities that as we continue moving forward that will be identified that we'll be able to make more progress on. So I just wanted to make sure the board was aware that those efforts are currently ongoing.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Tabaya?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I understand this item was probably put on before we got the rundown of the hard work that the county manager's office had done in this. So given that, is there a need for this? Is there a need for this, or is now that now that you've seen all the work, that's probably the fault of the county manager's office. They do so much work and they don't toot their own horn. So I understand why, you probably went in this direction, but would you be comfortable pulling this, seeing as they're already doing the job?
I would have to defer to the folks that have come from the fire union in particular, because it's something where the concern certainly existed on their part, and it was pretty palpable when I spoke with them that this was a concern to them that certain topics be addressed. I'm happy to go in whatever direction they'd like, because again, we're not obligating staff to do anything other than to, it sounds like, continue those negotiations.
I'm not, you're the mediator here probably, right? Help me out. Did you just defer to the other side of the negotiating table that we do what they wanted? Because that's scaring me right now.
This is kind of a peculiar situation in
I
the sense that...
I don't think it is. This is a bargaining situation.
Right.
That's the other side of the table. This is this side of the table. Did you just, I sincerely have an issue with deferring to the other side of the table. And I think you in your capacity as a certified mediator would know that that's probably not the direction or the negotiating stance we probably want to take, or better yet, put our county manager in the position to make. That's a position of weakness, one certainly I never want to be in.
I would beg to differ. I don't see what possible downfall we could have as a result of it. I think it shows that we're trying to work with them and that this is not necessarily something that has to be a confrontational process. I'm not deferring to them as to any material term and saying, tell me where to sign. I'm simply deferring to them as to whether or not they think that this would be something that's still beneficial for them. Because based upon the conversation that I had with them, it became pretty apparent, I shouldn't say pretty, it became readily apparent that there was an issue, at least in their perception. And my attempts as a mediator, if you will, was to try to bridge that divide to get people talking again and moving in a positive direction for all of us. Because the union is obviously the union, and they are, in a sense, the other side insofar as those negotiations are concerned, but they're still our county employees after all.
Mr. Chair, when you met with them, that was the genesis of this. Did they inform you of the ongoing work that the county manager's office and staff had been doing to further this, or did they not inform you of that information?
They informed me that there had been certain discussions, but that there were certain topics that essentially staff was disinclined to address with them absent specific direction from the board.
Okay, it looks like our county manager's got a point. I do have some questions. We'll have some questions for the county manager, certainly on this one, with your discretion, Mr. Chair.
Sure, and we have Commissioner Pritchett up next, and if it's all right, let's go to Mr. Abate. Is that all right, Commissioner Pritchett? Sure.
I'm thinking this probably, in my opinion, is something that we should let Mr. Abate work through. Just from my experience I spent on the local level, and we love firefighters, but there is a finesse to how you guys do your negotiations with certain things. And we have to be very careful legally, because he is the one who negotiates it, but he will come to us and we'll have to sit and ratify contracts and get information. So I think in all, what sort of conservatism, I think we might need, if you come meet with us one-on-one, give us information, then when we come together, we're allowed to sit in those type of negotiation settings. But we've just got a different kind of job here, and the county manager will bring things, and hopefully you guys will work something out, we'll come together, because we have to work through the dollars and what's good for you guys. If you were the sheriff, it's so different, because this is own entity, but it's just different. But you are so honored and loved by this commission, but I think we're going down a trail here right now we shouldn't be doing. I think this is something the county manager needs to do, and then we can get and have negotiations after he's come to some kind of middle ground with you guys.
Mr. Abate?
Just a couple of points. One,
yes, sir.
I don't want the county manager's office to take credit for all the items that staff is working with to address staffing, to address that. That's really being led within fire rescue and their leadership team. I'm supporting that, and I'm very open to them doing that, but I want the credit to be where it belongs. They are the ones who develop the work groups. They're the ones that are having the labor negotiation, the labor management meetings where their issues are being raised. I do have an open door. I have met with the leadership team at least 3 occasions, maybe more, over the last year or so, and they have an open door, and we do have discussions on items. As it relates to negotiations, we do look forward to doing the negotiations consistent with Florida Statute Chapter 447 and addressing it with the board. I did not see, nor do I see this as being something directing us relative to negotiations, because that's a separate process, and that collective bargaining. We're talking about things. If we're talking about, and I think I've tried to communicate, I hope effectively, to the leadership team, we're open to having discussions. The question is, who gets to make the determination as to how we move forward, and who has the final say? In other words, is it negotiated through a collective bargaining agreement? That's something different than having open dialogue, discussion, work group meetings where we come and then ultimately, try to get to the best place that we can. And if that's what we're doing, then, I think we are in that process, and we want to participate with the union. We want to be hand in hand with them, because there's a lot of issues coming up that we need to deal with in the long term. And if we're aligned in terms of our employees and the organization, and we're trying to move it forward, I think that's the best place for us to be, and that's where I hope we're headed. Thank you.
Commissioner Isnardi?
And I respect not only management, but the new union leadership for just how easy you guys are to deal with compared to your last leadership. And I'm not trying to sound rude when I say that, but it just seems to be a much more positive process and experience on both sides, and even with my office, for that matter. I think this is kind of funny that we're in this situation, because I know my concerns have always been, and I've spoken with you and even your past leadership about staffing, about mandatory overtime, and these are problems that aren't going away. So how do we fix that? We've got to look at the pay scale. And I spoke with Mr. Visco in my office just the other day about some of these items. But if we're being transparent on one end when we're dealing with certain legal or otherwise issues, I don't see any problem at all with us talking about it in the open, at least about where our positions are, because you can meet with each one of us individually and we can tell you, this is what I'd like you to do. And I don't think we're hurting your ability to negotiate at all. If you get direction from this board that we have to fix this problem somehow, some way, I want to be provided with how we get there. Because if we keep losing firefighters to municipalities that can pay these guys more, then we're not just wasting money. I mean, we're hurting morale, we're hurting it. It doesn't even make sense to me at all. And that seems to be at least the crux of the problem, because if we can't afford to pay them a decent wage, or we end up losing them before their 5-year mark, then it's all for naught. I mean, it really is, and it's sad, and I hate to see it, and that causes the mandatory overtime. Never mind the other issues we've got within the department, but that's an issue that has to be addressed. And I don't know if we do this in public, given our new view on transparency, I don't see the harm in it at all. So maybe negotiations should be held in public if we're going to go full realm.
They are.
Yeah, I'm talking about like the full contract. I mean, why not?
Contract negotiations are held in public.
I'm talking about in a public forum, like in a meeting, like in this sort of setting, in our meetings.
There's sunshine meetings.
Oh, I get that. I understand that. But I'm saying if we're going to be transparent about the whole process, because I keep hearing that we're taking negotiation power away from the management when management goes in to negotiate with the union. At least that's the feedback that I got.
From me?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. Yeah, I don't share that position.
Okay.
And I'm the county manager, so I don't know where that's coming from.
Okay.
Commissioner Pritchett?
Yeah, I don't know. We can talk about that, but we're talking about people's private lives, individual lives. So when we sit down, I'm going to want to see everybody's income and what things we're doing. And I don't want all of their incomes out in public for everybody to examine. So those other meetings we've had in private, when we were doing that, we were given data and information, because, people will pick people apart. So when we're talking about people's lives, that's something, you know, if we're working through negotiations, we're trying to figure out how to get the money there, because it's really all about dollars. You know, it's not black and white, it's green and white, trying to figure out how to fund it. If there's unlimited funds, there's not an issue, but that's what we got to try to figure out.
Right.
And when we negotiate this, you know, it's got to be done with a finesse that nobody loses the feeling of their value, and they're able to feel like they're important. So I don't know how to do all that, but I know in the past that when we've had a few of those meetings, we were able to come to some ideas and help give direction on what we thought was valuable, and maybe funding with some requests, because those negotiations are tedious. Like, you know, you don't want to have to do mandatory drug tests, or you want to be able to buy boots. So there's all those things that are mixed in with those items. So just from not railing everybody individually in front of the public as far as individual firefighters, I just think it's a better path. But it's not something somebody couldn't request, but just for privacy of people that do this job, I'm sensitive to that.
And I'm going to jump in real quick before I call on Commissioner Isnardi. I do also want to be mindful of not hurting you in the process of trying to help you. And if it's something where, and I don't mean you individually necessarily, but any of the folks that you represent, if you would rather have that discussion out in the open, knowing that your wages and your income would be something that's discussed, I don't have a problem doing that. You know, as Commissioner Pritchett had mentioned or alluded to, a lot of that is subject to a public records request anyway.
It is available.
You know, would it be something that's made more public? Sure, I'd acknowledge that. But, you know, it seems that some of the practices in the past have been good. Some of the practices in the past, as evidenced by our terrible retention, may not have been so good. So my thought is, you know, when we try to do something the same way that we've done it before and expect a different result, that may be the definition of something that we don't want to be or be characterized as. But, you know, I want to communicate with you guys that I'm certainly open to working with you. I think that the firefighters may not necessarily, and it's not due to any fault of their own, may not have been brought to understand the priority that they are, at least for the bulk of the commission here, if not all of the commission. And I just want you guys to know that if there are things that we can do up here, certainly I can speak for myself in saying that I would like to be as flexible as reasonably possible in trying to improve the conditions. And that includes looking at the wages and determining what we have to do in terms of maybe adjusting the MSTU upward a certain percentage. But it's something, you know, again, we've got to go through the process. Commissioner Isnardi?
And again, I mean, their wages are public record. They're not just by what their position is, but, you know, who they are. So, but my idea when I was talking about transparency wasn't so much about their personal stuff. It was more about discussions on where we want what kind of direction we want to give management to go. Because when they have mandatory overtime, it's not a few hours. It's 12, it's 24 hours, it's 2 or 3 days. It's not, you know, again, if we don't start taking better care of these guys, we're just going to keep losing them, and it's just pointless. It's just pointless, and it hurts morale. I mean, that's the bottom line. It's not about, oh, you know, do we support? Of course, people support firefighters. I mean, we're grateful for the job that they do, but there is that reality. If we want to keep them, we want to keep the good ones, then we have to at least be competitive in that salary range. So that's going to be my direction to staff moving forward. So,
Commissioner Pritchett.
I agree. The hard part is that as soon as you guys work 2 days, it's 48 hours, and you're already into overtime. So it's a little bit more of a finesse, and then if you come in and work the 3 days, you already have built-in overtime. So trying to get those with apples and apples, it's a little bit tough. And I had a thought early on, and everybody, you know, almost threw apples and tomatoes at me, is maybe going to a 40-hour work week and raising the rate so people weren't having to work overtime. So there may be some options that we can figure through of some ideas. But maybe it would be better I think there's a couple cities and counties that have done that. They've changed it over so you guys aren't having to stay there all night, but they work different shifts. So might be some options we might be able to do so that we can get rid of what's called the mandatory overtime. Because again, as soon as you're there for a couple of days, you're already over that amount. So this is just different working with this on how to do it and not harm you. And try to get those rates into a competitive rate as far with other cities and counties. But I really think you guys are wonderful, and I think you guys are really doing a good job. And I agree with Commissioner Isnardi, you're much easier to work with when we first came on, and thank you.
I don't see any further discussion with respect to this. It doesn't sound like I'm going to have the votes if I make the motion, so at this point, I'm not going to do that. But if you want, certainly if there's anything that you feel the need to comment toward, you haven't submitted a public comment card, so if there is something you want to say, I'm happy to give you your time to address anything that's been discussed up to this point. And if you could just do the full address for the clerk's benefit.
Sure. Ryan Barrick, 4537 Seattle Street, that's Port St. John. Appreciate you having me, and it's been a pleasure to meet with at least 3 of the 5 of you, and Commissioner Pritchard, we meet with you in a few days. We look forward to it. And Commissioner Tobias, we also would love to meet with you if you have us. We were tickled that you put this on the agenda. We do appreciate it, and certainly we're excited about having some dialogue with Frank and with Colonel Walls. Regarding the state of our current fire department, we're not just here to talk about wages. Actually, I wasn't even planning on it. Meeting with you one-on-one, we spoke of the state of our department as far as our retention and recruitment efforts go. Where we're growing as a county. Everybody's district is growing. Viera is, growing tremendously, and it's not just wages, retention, recruitment. You got to look at the additional protection that you're going to need. I believe it was Mayor Cocoa Beach who was in here talking about, a need that's going to occur there within her municipality real soon, and we're reaching that breaking point. You're going to need another fire station in Viera. You're going to need one in the back of Port St. John. West Melbourne is blowing up, at the Parkway, and these are all, concerns that are going to have to be addressed, and the money's not there to build these stations at $2 million a piece. So they're difficult conversations to have, and it's certainly above my pay grade to have them. But I'm honored to be here and to chat with you guys one-on-one. If you have any questions for us. I'm not a fear monger. That's not my intention. But some of the statistics that we've given, at least 3 of the 5 of you, and Commissioner Pritchard, I've bind for you as well if you'd like them, regarding the amount of employees that we're losing, and not just the amount, but how much it costs to train these folks. Over the last 10 years, we've lost 553 personnel at a fire rescue. That's the entire department. 431 of them being fire and EMS certified. It costs $20,000 to train a firefighter, about half that to train a single certified EMS personnel. So millions of dollars over the last decade spent on training our personnel just to lose them to another department. The training costs are really only half the atrocity. The atrocity is the experience that we're losing, the brain drain, if you will. So that's what we're dealing with right now. 68% of our department has less than 5 years on the job. It's difficult. This is a trade that we rely on experience. So I'm a lieutenant. Mike's a lieutenant. Sometimes we play eeny, meeny, miny, mo of who's going to drive the 36,000-pound fire engine that's worth $500,000 on days, and it's scary. So some of you have educated yourself on what's occurred in Polk County. We're trying to avoid that here. But thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you coming out. All right, unless there's any further discussion on it, I'm going to move on into public comment. I think we've addressed all of the public comment cards, and then we can move on at this point into board reports. Mr. Abate?
I have a couple of items. The first one is because of the low interest rate, that environment that's being experienced in today's market, we have an opportunity to refund an existing note that was used for energy performance improvements within county facilities that when we bonded in 2014. The county's financial advisor is estimating that the county could save an estimated $750,000 on a net present value debt service basis. I'm requesting the board's approval for the county's financial advisor to issue an RFP. We started with the bank that actually did the initial one, but he thinks we can do better if we go out in an RFP. So have him issue an RFP to lending institutions to provide the county with a proposal for a fixed rate term loan at the lowest overall borrowing cost. And we believe we'll save $750,000 doing that, and that's an all-in cost. This refunding opportunity has been reviewed by the county's financial team, and that consists of county finance, our budget office, the county manager's office, and our financial advisor. There will be no obligations on the board to accept any offers that are received that you determine are not in the best interest of the county. And staff, of course, will bring back the results of the RFP to the board as soon as they're analyzed with a recommendation. So we wanted to bring this to the board now because timing is important in these issues, and we spoke with County Finance this morning and thought that this was the best way to approach it, so I wanted to have it as part of my report and ask for a motion on that.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, we've got a motion, a second for Commissioner Isnardi. All in favor of approval? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 4-0.
The second item deals with a report. We just wanted to update the board because, as you know, you've gotten some emails relating to the Babcock Street connection that we're working with Palm Bay in an interlocal agreement. There's been discussions for the last several weeks, and they've been fairly intense during the last week. And we had a discussion as late as 4 o'clock, 3:30 this afternoon, 3:45, and something like that, by the time we got done with almost a 2-hour dialogue. And I'll just ask John to be brief in just telling the board where we are. And why don't you take it, John?
Sure. Commissioners, as you may realize or recall, last week I was a little pessimistic about where we were. Things began to look like it might be a little bit better, but we provided our version of the agreement to the city. They provided a changed or modified version of it to us yesterday, and staff reviewed that. We found several pretty significant concerns. We had, as Frank indicated, we had a lengthy conversation this afternoon trying to sort through as much of it as we could. While we had some, I'll say, modest success with portions of it, there was a couple of major items that were very substantial and serious to us that we couldn't resolve. The staff city staff has this scheduled and agended for city council to hear this evening. Their council meeting starts in about 15 minutes, and the item comes up fairly late on the agenda, as I recall. And of course, we have this we were hoping to have an agreement and that we could bring to the board on Tuesday, and so it's already been scheduled for that. Currently, we intend to modify that agenda report to bring their version and our version to you, so you can see where we are. We don't know what City Council is going to do this evening. And but I can tell you that one of the provisions that they are pretty fixed on is one that would allow the interlocal agreement to effectively expire when the existing joint planning agreement expires. And to be clear about this, that agreement can expire with 60 days written notice by either party, or it would expire naturally by date in about 3 years. And this is particularly relevant to the transfer of Babcock to the city from the Parkway north to Malabar Road. Absent that, then the county would remain the owners of Babcock after all the development that loads the road up with traffic on it. So that's our objection to that. And so in other words, it doesn't have durability with that. It would depend on us agreeing in the future to maintain the joint planning agreement. And I think the county attorney can advise you about agreeing to agree in the future, being a very unsecure place to be. So that's where we're at. I can't tell you what the council's going to do this evening. We'll try to update you on that on Tuesday and see where we're at.
Question.
Commissioner Isnardi?
It's sort of dangerous to get me talking on this because of how long my office, at least since we've been in office, has been working on this. And again, and I hate to sound like a broken record, so I apologize to everyone else in the room. Rewind several years, this intersection was supposed to be paid for by the city of Palm Bay and/or a developer, correct?
That's correct.
And that was well-established, well-decided, not anything really to do with the county, correct?
That's correct.
And that changed?
They are now, well, the developer doesn't seem to be anywhere on the stage, so to speak. The city is, I believe, at this point agreeing to pay for the intersection. It is and I think they're even agreeing to contributing impact fees going forward into the future, although there's some difficulties about the details associated with that.
But all correspondence that you recall seeing, because you've been a part of this project for as many years as, how many years, like 15, 20 years since you've been with the county, correct, as a public works director?
Yes, since I've been involved with it since the property down there was annexed by the city.
So all correspondence and everything that you've been told and meetings that you've had with this particular developer, the developer was paying for this intersection, correct?
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted it coming from a staff member and not from a politician, because people obviously will question us before they'll question you, because you have no vested interest in this other than to just tell the truth. So, I mean, in reality, so if they don't believe me, they can maybe perhaps believe you. So going back or moving forward a little bit further down the line, our office, at least for the last, since I've been here, I'm not sure, Commissioner Anderson got that $1.5 million we originally agreed to pay toward this intersection, and our office made multiple efforts, had multiple meetings, and tried everything within our power, at least within the district and within the county's power, to get this intersection agreement done for the years at least I've been here, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, how many meetings? 10, 12, 15, 20? How many emails? I mean, I'm guessing. I mean, I can't even guess. It's been so many.
I wouldn't debate the numbers you've given, except
Okay,
they might be low.
I guess my point is it's not for a lack of every effort, every resource, every opportunity, and every wanting to try to get this done. We just couldn't get it done. And that money was sitting on that intersection for how long trying to wait to get it done?
Probably 5 years, maybe more.
Correct. So we sat down, we talked about it, I brought it back to the board, and we decided that, you know, we could use this money. We have other projects that obviously need the money, and we were concerned that that money could sit there for another undisclosed amount of time. So we paved how many miles on Babcock? 3 miles?
We just reconstructed,
Reconstructed.
about 3¼ miles of Babcock.
That was like a washboard out there.
It
So
was, yes, ma'am.
It was on our list, and it was at least a high priority for that area. So we kept the money within the district, and we were able to at least utilize it instead of having it sit there doing absolutely nothing. Now, moving forward, I mean, the city of Palm Bay chose where that intersection was going to go, correct?
Either they or the developer did,
So
or both together, probably.
just for the record, can you say that one more time, please?
Either the developer or the city or both together did it.
Decided where this intersection was go. And
That's correct.
And our primary concern is to have a safe, workable intersection to handle the traffic that the city of Palm Bay is bringing in from their developments that they're allowing from this road, correct?
That's correct. The new traffic will come from their development. There will
Okay.
be some from I-95 coming in onto Babcock at that location.
And for the record, there's nothing and no reason that we want to hold this up.
Absolutely not.
Right, because we're getting just as many calls as I'm sure they are about opening up the road. We're just as anxious, and we're trying, and oftentimes the discussions sort of divulge from where they were when you have those discussions with their assistant, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so I'm going to keep rooting for us, Mr. Denninghoff and Mr. Abate, that we get this done, and I'm hoping that they have a good, productive meeting. But again, I hate to sound like a broken record, this intersection actually falls within both Commissioner Tobias and myself's district, but we obviously want this road open as badly as the residents and as badly as everybody else that's going to be able to use this interchange. But I wanted the facts again on the record, so if there was any question, any doubt, because the city of Palm Bay's message, whether it be from their politicians or their management, has been, we're waiting on the county to issue the permit. And that's not the case. I mean, that's not the case at all. We need an agreement in place. We need a safe intersection. and we want it probably more than they do. So I just wanted that on the record. Thank you, Mr. Denninghoff.
To add one thing, Commissioners, at least one of the situations, phases on the plans as they currently exist has a substandard and unsafe condition spelled out on the plans, and so we refuse to approve that part of it. The other two phases are okay, but that interim phase actually has a serious traffic safety hazard associated with it. So we're telling them they've got to get that fixed before we can move forward.
Okay, and if, depending on where their meeting goes tonight and discussions, could we get like sort of like just a bullet point breakdown of where we are, like something? Because I get a lot of questions, like I said, because of the misinformation coming out from either officials or management over at the City of Palm Bay, and it's sort of tiresome, only because I keep repeating the same things, and again, I'm a politician, I'd rather have something a little more official from you. I've directed them to your correspondence that you've had with the city, but it's kind of long as well, so I'd just like something together. I'm hoping we can come up with an agreement, and this is a moot point, but moving forward, I have to justify to residents why that damn intersection isn't open, and it's a bit much. So.
Understood.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Bentley.
No report.
You sure about that? Last opportunity. It's been so eventful so far. All right, Ms. Pritchett, Commissioner Pritchett. I'm going to pass for now. I'll come back. Commissioner Tabaya.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate the emphasis that you've put on speeding up meetings. I have an opportunity here that potentially would speed up these zoning meetings, maybe provide staff with a little extra time, and most importantly, help out businesses.
What am I seconding?
Here's the deal. I think today was a good example. We had 3 CUPs dealing with alcoholic beverages, beer and wine, and probably we as a board shouldn't be making this decision. It's probably best be left with government. And I asked staff to find out if there had been any disapprovals, and the best they looked at all the way back to 2014. In fact, there hadn't been any. To put it in perspective, businesses, it's only certain businesses. Sometimes it's dependent on the number of seats. It's very complicated. But by the way, it's taken folks 3 months. And the application fee's $849. Now, assuming we did not cut any staff time, of that $849, $160 is advertising. Now, while I hate to take away revenue from the Florida today, we could lower the price on businesses if this was handled ministerially instead of through the board. I've taken the further step of asking staff how long a report with options would be. They've informed me somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 to 8 hours. Before I asked staff to invest that amount of time, I certainly would want to get approval, but this looks like it could be a win for staff, a win for us, as well as a win for businesses.
So your motion is concisely?
Yeah, please direct staff to develop a report with options on simplifying the process for CUP
Seconded.
applications for the sale of beer and wine in commercial establishments.
Still seconded. Commissioner Pritchett?
I think I like it. Can Tad go ahead and give us a little response?
Mr. Calkins?
Yes.
Mr. Calkins?
So I think Commissioner Tobias summed it up pretty well. There are, I think, some opportunities that the board may be able to consider. We'd like to have the opportunity to bring that back. I think the big thing that we're looking at here is historically, we bring these to you guys as a conditional use and they do get approved, and there is a time delay for that applicant to be able to provide that service. So that would be, I think, what the emphasis would be on. I do think that beer and wine is a good one to look at, because I think when we get into where we've seen board concerns, it's been more with the full liquor, it's been more with the bars and that. So I think there's some opportunity here for us to bring something to you guys.
All right. So with that, we have a motion and a second. No further discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes 4-0. Thank you. Let's see. Commissioner Smith is out. Commissioner Isnardi? Nothing. All right. Nothing from Commissioner Isnardi. I've got a few items. I'm going to kind of give you a little teaser as to one of them. First, I just wanted to recognize Barbara Wilcox, who is the teacher from Tropical Elementary, who came out here on the kindness symbol and also up to Cape Canaveral on the kindness symbol to get resolutions from us. She had indicated to me that her group had gone up to the state capitol and had proclaimed the week of 2/16 through 2/20 of this year Florida Kindness Week. So my congratulations to her and to the students that are in her class that have been involved in that. Next item up, the Valiant Air Command up in D1. I have, and I think I alluded to this a few meetings ago perhaps, I've been trying to work with both them, the Warbirds program that they have, as well as Brian Lilly, who's put on the Melbourne show, to see if we can somehow avoid having the two compete within a week or two of one another and parasitize participants from each other. So at this point, what I understand, having met with the Warbirds group or the Valiant Air Command group 2 or 3 days ago, and having spoken with Mr. Lilly the day after that, it seems that they are in agreement that we will have one air show between the two of them in 2021. Essentially, Mr. Lilly is going to be putting the show on, assuming everything falls into place. The group in Titusville, Valiant Air, has agreed to give Mr. Lilly and his group the Thunderbirds, which they secured for themselves, which is excellent. So we'll have a great team up here. Mr. Lilly has agreed to pay that group in order to fly their aircraft for an hour during the air show. So we will have a good element of the historical aircraft involved. I'll bring you some more info with respect to that as it becomes available, but I did want to at least keep you up to speed with some of the things that were relatively new with that. So that's the second item. The third item, and this is just going to be a little teaser. I know that Commissioner Tobias is going to love this. I will, in all likelihood, be bringing a proposal, not for the next meeting, but at some point in the future. You ready for it? To buy a heritage park. Don't you guys love how that sounds? So I've spoken with some of the folks on the Historical Commission, including Roz and Henry, about a desire that they had to put up also in D1 a park, or we could carve out of an existing park, which was what was suggested, some land to put some historical structures up that show the history of Brevard County from 100 and some odd, 125 years ago, up through more recent times, with a focus, among other things, on the citrus industry, on black history, on a lot of things that make Brevard unique, that show really what kind of a culture and background we have as a county. So that is something that when I have more details fleshed out from them, I will bring back. I do know that prior to my time on the commission, there was a resolution or an item that was approved by the county commission some years back to move forward in this direction, but there were some problems in terms of accomplishing what the commission sought to do at that time. Commissioner Pritchett.
Yeah, would you, I can't talk to you because of sunshine laws, but would you sit with Miss Mary Ellen and get some information on that? We've been working with that on and off for 3 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a little bit of problems with cost and land ability. So if you would get with her so she can kind of update you with some stuff. Coach P's working on something too, but she can fill you in with all those details.
All right.
Okay.
All right, sounds like a plan. And that's all I have, and I believe we're through it. So unless there's anything else, oh, Fritz. I'm not through it. There is one other item. Thank you. I appreciate Fritz's flailing in the back over there. So I do have an item that he asked me to bring up. Thank you. We would like to place a Welcome to Merritt Island sign outside of the District 2 office at no cost to county taxpayers. We've had the local realty group, or the real estate group, I'm blanking on the term for them, the group that perhaps I think all of us have been to one or another event at, that have volunteered to essentially sponsor it up to, I believe, $4,500, maybe it was $5,500 in that ballpark. The problem is that the sign would advertise in a portion of it a non-county entity, namely that group, which would pay for the replacement. And putting that sign up with that on there would violate current code. So my request is that I have a motion directing planning and development staff to bring forth legislative intent and permission to advertise a code amendment to section 62-3309 of the sign code so that we can put up that sign tax-free. Again, it would be on county property but paid for by a non-county entity. And Tad, I don't know if you have any commentary on that. I know we've gone back and forth several times over the months.
Yes, sir. So what it is our code currently has some provisions for signs on government property and in the right-of-way. The kind of sign that's being proposed doesn't fall under one of those provisions. So we would have to go in and update the code to allow for that. I think as long as it's limited to public properties, then that would be what you guys would take into consideration. I don't think that the board would be interested in opening this up for private properties, because then there may be a different element to it. So that's what I think we would be bringing back for you all's consideration if you agreed to let us bring legislative intent forward.
But apart from that, you don't have any particular concerns? Or do you?
I don't know that there's any particular concerns from a signing standpoint for it to be on, public property and stuff like that, whereas, I think we can define the sign well enough in the code that would say that it's, for what the board would want to consider for these situations, and then just to have a copy area for the sponsor.
Perfect, thank you. May I have a motion for that? Pretty please? All right, we have a motion from Commissioner Pritchett, second from Commissioner Isnardi. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, passes 4-0. And with that, we're going to adjourn at 7:05. Thank you all so much for coming out.
The opinions expressed by any member of the public during any period of public comment do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, or the program sponsor, and are solely those of the presenter. The Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, and the program sponsor hereby expressly disclaim any and all responsibility or liability for any defamatory or slanderous statements expressed by any member of the public during any such period.